something like the flares of the geometry, something like the scratches. And in this scale, all these flares, it's increasing because it looks much bigger than in real life. Sorry. What's going on? Okay. So this is all, these flares looks bigger than in real life, and you see it's not natural because you see the biggest flares. But when you will paint it with non-metal metallics, you can hide all these flares behind the matte paint and show only that you want to show. So this is...
You take one?
Oh yeah, thank you. Okay, so this is two pictures. Almost equal models, Iron Warriors, 20mm scale, painted. One is true metallics and other in the non-metal. So here you may see, maybe it looking good, but not good enough. This one much better, because everything that I want to show, it's especially the brightest highlights, and I can do it much better than the real metallics. Because, as I say, I can hide the minor flaws. For example, the figure sculpted not very well. It's not like the perfect round, but something like a bit distorted round. And the natural reflections reveal these flaws. You may see that all this bright reflection from the lamp reveal all this incorrection of the form. And this is why when you paint it with the matte paints, you can hide it. Because you can paint the correct white reflections with the correct shapes by your own hands. If you skill it, you can paint it very well and receive the better view. Probably it's not so dynamical. You cannot see it very well from different angles, but anyway, if you skill it, you can hide the contradictions and show something much better than with true metallics. So, and this is the main meaning of the non-metal. It's a making of illusion of reflection surface. When we speak, when we paint the non-metallics, we speak not only metal. We paint not only metal, we can paint the same way something like the leather, for example, or polished stone. Everything that can reflect the light. But it's an illusion. For this, we're using the colors. We cannot make the perfect surface while we sculpt model. But we can make an illusion that it's a perfect surface when we use colors by the correct way. But for this, we need to know how it works. We need to know something like the physical laws, and need to know how it looks in real life and why it looks so. And for this, we just need to figure out one main physical rule. That so you know, the light it's have some traits. One of the traits of the light is light is like the particles. The particles, it's like, I don't know, you may see something like the light falling from the small keyhole, and it looks like the stream of particles. This is one of the traits that is important for us when we paint the non-metal. We just need to figure out that we have something like the light source, we have the particles of the light, falling from this source, and if we know this, we can go forward. We know this rule, and we can adapt it for our needs. So, and then we go to another most important physical rule for painting of the non-metal. So we always need to figure out that the angle. Sorry. Just one moment, please. Okay. Okay, yeah, thank you. So, and this is a important physical rule that can help us when we paint the non-metal. We just need to figure out that angle of the falling light is equal to the angle of reflected light. So do you see the normal, it's a 90 degree, and on any kind of surface, doesn't matter, is it flat surface or is it round surface, we can always find the smallest microscopic piece of surface that can reflect the light. And depending on this, reflection might be distorted. For example, if we see something like just a mirror, just a flat, perfect mirror, we see everything without a reflection. We see reflection without any kind of distortion. We see everything very correct, as is. But on the rounded surface, you see on the round surface, every time reflections will be distorted. And why it will be distorted? So, as I said, it's an illustration of my sentence. You see on every kind of this piece of surface, you may find the small place that will reflect the light, and you just need to figure out how it might be. For example, you have the light source in this position. It may be somewhere here, doesn't matter. So, the light source, the light falling from this source to this angle, we find in the direct angle, and depending on the direct angle, this light will be reflected to the eye of observer. This is why we see something on surface of the orb. That's because light source might be reflected directly to our eyes. For example, if the light source is here, so this is what we will see. This is physical setup, and this is what we will see depending on position of light source. So we see something like a bright spot on this place. So, and if the light source will be removed to another direction, so what we will see? Also again, falling light, direct angle, reflected light. This is how we will see this physical setup. So do you see? That's because it's not a flat surface, it always will be distorted. Do you see? It's not like the mirror. You see it's distorted reflection. It's not like the round, it's a bit pressed. This reflection of the horizon is also a bit curved. That's because it's not a flat surface. And again, if light source is removed up, we will see it like reflection on the top. So it's just samples. When you will paint something like this, you will receive your own personal experience, depending on your model. Anyway, it's something just an explanation of simple physical rules. Why you see something on the surface of the curved shapes in different places. Just because of this. Because of this main physical rule. Light, angle of the falling light is equal to the angle of reflected light. Also, here another good picture that I want to show. Explanation why sometimes you may see the bright reflection not only on the top places, not only here, but also you may see something inside of the deep shapes, inside of the deep places. That's because this angle of this surface and this surface and this surface equal. All of these places can reflect the light because we can see it, not because it's in deep, just because it's the same angle. And this is, for example, this picture, you may see, you also can find the bright spots even in the deep places too, not only here, but also inside of the deep places. Just because all this surface is turned to the light source on the equal angle. So because many, for example, beginners make same mistakes when they paint something like the non-metal elements in bright colors. They always paint deep places in black, just because they think that because it's black it cannot reflect the light. No, it can reflect the light, and if you can figure out how it's worked, you can paint it very realistic, just making an illusion. But as I said, you need to know this something like the simple physical rules. Another sample. All kind of very curved and complex surfaces might be divided to something very simple. Even the previous face, like this one, you can divide on something simple, like this one, like the orb, like the cone, like the silent or flat surface. Doesn't matter. It's just main basic 3D shapes that can reflect the light, and the reflection of the light source, the shapes of reflection will be a bit distorted, and you just need to remember simple rules, how it might be distorted depending on the physical surface. So when you paint something like the knight armor or like the metal mask, you can divide the metal armor. For example, the breastplate, it's something like the orb, just maybe a bit pressed. Something like the arm may be painted like the cylinders. Part of the helmet may be something like the cone. Anyway, something complex that looks too difficult, but if you have some kind of imagination, you can devise this complex object on something very simple and work with the simple object. So, on the flat surface, sometimes reflections looks like just a simple gradient. If you paint something like the gradient, maybe it's not so spectacular, but it's correct. If you paint the metal, it looks like gradient. So it's nothing special, but later, if you have experience, you can adapt it for your needs. But don't think about flat surface too much. Better for us, something like the curved surface, like the cylinders or the cone or the orb. Because with the simplest colors, like the black and white, for example, we can show pretty contrasting and interesting reflections. It will look very simple, absolutely simple. For example, reflection of the cylinder looks like line in direction of the axis of the cylinder. And all kind of reflection from outside, here they will be pressed. Anyway, the simplest way how you can show the shiny cylinder. Paint something like the bright line in direction of the axis. It's working every time. Another object is the cone. It looks like the cylinder, but one end it's going to the sharp tip, and all lines will be distorted like the triangle. If you paint something like the, I don't know, the helmet of the Russian noble warrior, you can paint it like the cone and paint something like the triangle, bright triangle in direction of the axis, and you receive something like the cone. As I said, it's an illusion. You see this object on the screen, you know, it's just flat screen. But your brain knows that you see something like the 3D shapes. And the meaning of the non-metal is to cheat the brain of the observer, to show something that looks like cone, looks like a cylinder. And as I said, it doesn't matter which color you use. First, you need to cheat the brain of observer, and you just need to know some rules how to cheat it very well. Need to know the physical rules, so this is how it's working. Okay, so another one, it's orb. Do you see? It's most complex form from all, because reflection will be too distorted. Here, for example, or here, just one dimension, why it might be distorted. It's in this horizontal dimension. But here, everything will be curved, everything will be distorted, depending on the radius. But anyway, all kind of reflection will be distorted on this radius, on these vectors, on this direction. And if you have enough of references, you can recognize how kind of reflection might be distorted, but anyway, you just need to figure out that it's a simple form. It may look like the ellipse, or it may look like the a bit pressed orb. But anyway, this kind of curved surface always very typical, and you just need to find the same on the reference pictures. So, also another sample, for example, how it working while you paint it. For example, you need to paint something like the sword. The sword is a combination of several flat surfaces, several edges, with something like the line, what's called the edge between of two surfaces. So, this kind of broken surface. So, anyway, you have one flat surface with a gradient. How you can show that it's another surface? You just need to show that between of them have the edge. You just paint a sharp line between of them, one gradient on this side, another gradient on this side. So then you can transform it to something like this part. You can add a little of color, for example, brown reflection from the ground, and you receive the simplest sword. The simplest non-metal sword that's possible to paint. It's working every time because it's something simple. For the brain, it's the easiest way how you can cheat the brain, how you can make the illusion, and to show something simple and very well know it. everybody knows that it looks like a sword because it's just a simple gradient, so it looks authentic. So that's okay for your brain, and you trust that it's a metal surface. It may be totally matte, but you see combination of the white spot, the dark spot, something like the gradient, like you may see here, and so it's working very well. It's simple, but it's working. But sometimes, as I say, important to know that angle of the falling light is equal of angle of reflected light. But some surface, for example, this is a hole looks the mirror. It's a physical explanation of the mirror, the perfect mirror, because all falling particles reflected on the same angle, and it means you see the perfect reflection. But sometimes you may see something like the matte surfaces. Some metal, it doesn't like polished mirror. Some metal looks like the dull surface. You may see that it's metal because you see something like the white blurred spot. But why you see this like the blurred spot? Because surface not perfect. You see something different flares, something like the dents, like the scratches, and all these smallest elements of surface make the different angle for reflected light. And this is the reason why not all falling light reflected directly to the eye of observer. It's just reflected to another angle. And this is the reason why you see something like a blurred. For example, as I said, so metal like the chrome looks like perfect mirror, but something like this one, do you see it's metal surface? It's painted in gray metallic, but anyway it's not so shiny. That's because it's not so shiny, like for example this one surface. This one is chrome and you see reflection very sharp and very bright. Here you may see technically it's the same reflection, the same setup, but it doesn't look so shiny like here because it's just not so good quality of surface, and it reflects the light to the different angles. So as I say, how it's look in real life. So different kind of materials, all is metal, but you may see it looks different. Why? Because it's a different quality of surface. This one like the mirror surface. Do you see? Reflections very sharp, very bright, very strong. This one on the dull surface, reflection you may see, yeah, probably technically like this one. Also reflection of the white spot. But this one is blurred, this one is more focused. This is because this is brushed and this one is polished better. And for artists, we can make the something like the scale, like the characteristic of the any kind of material. Doesn't matter what is it. Is it a carpet? Is it a wall? Is it a metal or wood or leather? Doesn't matter. We can describe the shyness of the object in 3 scale. It's like a scale for the 3D program for making the 3D models. Anyway, have a lot of scale, how you can make it shiny, maybe it will be scratched, it doesn't matter. For artists, we don't need so much. We just need to find something really simple for us. Because every time the simplification is a key to the success. When you make something simple, it's always working. If you're skilled enough, you can make more detailed object. But anyway, if you're just a beginner, you just need to know simple rules how to show the illusion. And for begin, I can divide 3 scale. 3 scale, how you can show something shiny. Doesn't matter what is it, the metal, is it a leather or is it shiny plastic. Anyway, have the 3 scale. So, firstly, the contrast. Do you see all these 3 objects? Do you see this one looks like the matte object, this one like the satin semi-gloss, and this one like the glossy. Why? Because have the difference of reflections that you may see on the surface of these 3 objects. And so, 3 characteristics that are most important for this. First is the contrast. Do you see a contrast between of this dark part and between this bright part? Not so strong like here. Here it's pure black and pure white. Do you see the contrast here is much stronger than here? And this is why, this is one of the reasons why you see this object like the glossy and this one like the matte. So, firstly is the contrast. Another one, the sharpness. Do you see, this reflection is very blurred. It's very soft, very ambient. You don't see something like the sharp lines, sharp edges of the reflection. But here you may see a lot. The sharp line of the horizon. the sharp outlines of the clothes, probably it's a clothes, I think yes. Anyway, reflection on the glossy surface will be more sharp, more precise, much better visible than onto the matte surface. On the matte surface, everything will be just blurred. And the third characteristic is the saturation. Here, everything, all the colors, do you see, it's all around the dark gray. Here you may see the dark part, here's the brighter part, but anything, it's around the gray. You don't see a lot of colors, only something like the gray. But here you may see black, you may see something like the brown, the greenish color, bluish color. I think it's from the sky, it must be bluish, that's because the monitor is not good. So, but anyway, you have a lot of different colors. And if we combine all these characteristics together, on the one side of our scale will be something totally black that cannot reflect the light. On the other side we will have the perfect mirror. The mirror is the object that reflects everything perfectly. Any kind of sharp reflection, any kind of colors, you will see on the mirror. On the matte surface, when you switch the scale to this side, your reflection will just disappear. It will be blurred, it will be dull, it will be not so colorized, it will be not so sharp. Anyway, three characteristics that are important. The contrast. Contrast, as I say, is the difference between the darkest part and the brightest part of your painting. Second, in the sharpness of the outline. How sharp your pictures that you may see onto reflections. The third one is the saturation. How much of colors you may see on surface. How strong these colors, how they hue. Anyway, it's important, so don't think about something like the scratches, some kind about the, I don't know, anti-aliasing. Think only about three simple characteristics. Contrast, sharpness and the saturation. If you use it very well, you can reflect really shiny surface or something like the semi-gloss surface. Doesn't matter, is it metal, is it leather or shiny plastic. Anyway, you can find something that can reflect the light very well, or as well, depending on what you need. It's just samples, just to show you how it looks in real life, what I mean. So do you see the matte metal? So you see this gun, you know it's metal, but it doesn't look like something shiny, and you cannot figure out what is it. Is it metal, maybe it's a steel, or maybe it's a plastic, we don't know. It looks like something dull because you may see everything very dark, have no really bright highlights, really pure white highlights, absolutely have no sharp reflection. Here's the same. You see something like the dull white part, but it's blurred. Have no sharp lines, have no sharp visible horizon. Everything totally dull, totally matte because it's just matte material. Yeah, this is the same. Here you absolutely cannot see reflections because you know that it's steel, just because it's a tank track, Caterpillar, but you know it's have no reflection. Here's the same. Everything looks gray and have no sharp reflection, have no a lot of colors, everything very dull. So medium metal, it's something that I recommend, this condition of metal, something that I recommend for painting of the non-metal. Later I explain why, but this condition, semi-gloss metal, is something that really good for painting of the non-metal metal, because you may see something like the colors. Maybe here it's just too much, but it's just because it's a screen. So actually you may see the blue sky reflected on the top of the helmet. You may see something dark, reflection of the this halberd on the side of the helmet. You may see reflection of the line of the horizon, something like the brown ground. You may see a lot, but as you can check, this is a blurred, ambient reflection. They are not sharp. And as I say, for the artist, I recommend especially this condition because you can hide something that you want to hide and show something interesting. Yeah, another sample. This is a semi-gloss surface of the leather scabbard and the metal part. Do you see leather also can reflect the light? Do you see a bright white reflection over the brown surface of the leather? That's because the surface also not matte, it's semi-gloss. And as I said, it's very good to show this condition of metal because you can use already good level of the contrast. already good level of the saturation, and reflection will be sharp enough to show something interesting on the surface of the metal. So this is what I paint with the totally matte acrylics. This one is Grey Knight Terminator. Do you see? It looks like something shiny, but it's totally matte. It looks shiny just because I combine together bright and dark spots in right position, in good contrast. I add a little of color. It doesn't look like pure gray, it looks like bluish gray somewhere. On the bottom you may see the red reflection because the base must be red. So anyway, all this kind of additional colors might be reflected and might be visible on the semi-gloss metal. Just because it's already semi-gloss, not totally matte. Totally matte will look like gray, like plastic, and for us, like the artist, it's no goals because it's just dull. Another one, so it's 28mm figures, also looking good enough, because also mostly I working with the contrast. The contrast between of the brightest spots here and the darkest, almost black spots here. So anyway, when you see the good contrast, it's a trait that you see something glossy. The same about any kind of materials. For example, you have something like the human face. In compare with something like the matte surface of the clothing, the human face more glossy, and it means that contrast of the colors on the human face will be stronger than onto the matte surface of the clothing. It means you can paint the darker shades on the face, the brighter highlights on the face, then and compare with the clothing. That's because face it's semi-gloss and the clothing is totally matte, for example. So another condition, it's very well polished, glossy metal. Here you may see a lot, you may see all the colors, you may see very sharp reflection, you may see a lot of interesting elements from around. You see here it's a pure green, reflection of the forest or green grass. Anyway, it's something very bright, something very shiny. Why you see it shiny and bright? Just because you see really strong contrast, really sharp reflections, and really bright colors over it. Yes, like this. So here you may see everything, the pure blue sky, the brown stone, so everywhere you may see a lot of sharp reflection. Here the same, here you may see even the reflection of the face of this night. Do you see reflection of the green grass? So in result, they look like the mirror mans, and it's very spectacular, but you must be very skilled for painting, because you need to make the render inside of your head for figure out how kind of reflection you may see. How, depending on the angle, you may see some object from the distance, how it might be reflected on the surface of the armor. Here also a lot you may see strong white reflection of the sun of the bottom part of the model. So do you see here the upper part of the model looking even darker than the bottom part, because the blue sky looks like something darker than the white sand from above, from the bottom. And by the way, this model looks very spectacular because it's a combination of really bright and really interesting colors on the very special position. So if you are a skilled artist, you can paint it. So it's just comparison of the different kind of metals on the same picture. So do you see? These three elements, these three helmets, looks dull. Why? Because you don't see so much of really dark colors over it. It looks like something around the light gray. The darkest spots is here, but just because it's a place where have the deepest shade. But anyway, you will not see a reflection of the line of the horizon, because it's totally matte, and mostly it's enlightened object, and mostly you see the reflection of the strong white light on the top part, here and here, but it doesn't look like something polished. Here you may see a lot of sharp reflection, because you see even reflection of the tree. The tree visible through the glass rooftop and the photo studio. Here the same. The dull surface of the breastplate looks like something ambient. But the top of the helmet, do you see, it's a lot of sharp reflection. A lot of sharp reflection of the background, something from the sides that might be visible in this photo studio. Anyway, this material and this looks totally different. Both of this material looks like something dark, but this one you may see compare with this and this, and you figure out that it's shiny because you see different spots, different, absolutely different colors, different sharp reflection in comparison with this dull metal. This is how, and this is why you see this difference. For example, this ball looks dull, but why? Because it's brushed, it's polished, and you may see traces of the polishing. As with the previous pictures, reflection looks dull, but here you may see something like additional lines. Do you see? Reflection looks like lines. Why? Because if you go closer, you may see traces of the polishing tool on this direction, like the radius, and all the smallest elements also reflect the light. So technically you see the big orb, but this orb combined from the smallest segments of the cone or of the cylinder. Anyway, it's a combination of the micro volumes combined together in the macro volume. This is the same illustration. It's just bigger traces, bigger scratches that I paint over the surface of the really old and covered by dense, what's called the blade of the weapon. So also it's not perfect because it looks dull, because it's full of scratches. Here you may see a lot of this kind of stuff. I just don't know how to show it closer because I also have something like the smallest scratches here, but the meaning is like on the previous pictures. It's something that looks semi-gloss just because it's full of micro scratches. And this is, I think it's the best possible illustration of it. So you see the flat surface. Flat surface of the cylinder, the top surface, but because it's polished by the milling machine, all of these traces combined together, all separate trace, it's a piece of the cone. How you can see the cone from the top? You may see something like the lines, reflections that go to the center of the cone. And in result, this is flat surface combined from the tiniest pieces of the cone, combined one into another. All separate track is a piece of the cone. So